Hello, Dana Sparks, broker with Maximum One Greater Atlanta, and today's contract tip has to deal with the sale or lease of buyer's property contingency. Great news, today's market, we have a lot of actual people, live people living in homes as opposed to vacant homes in past years, where somebody has to sell or lease their current property in order to complete and consummate the transaction to purchase a new property. So these contracts now have the contingency that the buyer buying a new property, it is contingent upon them selling or leasing their existing property. So the contingency forms, there is one in GAR and in the RE forms. Here. This is the GAR form, sale or lease of buyer's property contingency exhibit, and it is form F90. And the RE contracts form, sale or lease contingency exhibit. Very unique names, right? And that form is RE 251. One of the things I specifically want to bring to your attention, number one, you absolutely must include this form if a purchaser's purchase of property number 2 is contingent upon them selling or leasing their existing property. One of the things I want to point out to you as an agent is the kickout provision in both sets of these forms. In the GAR form, it is called kickout provision, and in the RE form, it is called demand to remove contingencies. The substance of both of these is the exact same. But here's the thing I want you to understand. When you make the sale or lease of the buyer's property contingency exhibit subject to a kickout clause, then basically the seller of property number 2 still can offer that property up for sale. If they get another offer in, another contract that they want to accept, they have to go back to buyer number 1 and say, okay, we're going to kick you out in favor of another offer. Buyer number 1, who has this contingency in their contract, has the option of staying the primary contract. So when the seller comes to them and says, we want to kick you out, buyer has X number of hours, whatever you negotiate in these exhibits, to choose to, nope, guess what? I absolutely have got to sell my existing house. I'm not in a position to go through with the transaction, so I'm going to terminate, get my earnest money back. Or, no, I really, really want house number 2. I am going to remove this contingency and proceed on with this transaction. So offer number 2 that you got, those people go away. But here's the thing. So if a buyer ends up going through and releasing the contingency, it does not just release the contingency on the sale or lease of their house. The kickout, when they invoke the kickout and go through with it, it removes, when the buyer agrees to do that, it removes all buyer contingencies from the contract. So I'll read what it says. It specifically says, buyer has X number of hours after receipt of the notice to deliver to seller amendment to this agreement signed by the buyer, in which the buyer agrees to remove all contingencies in favor of the buyer, any due diligence period in the agreement, and deposit of any additional earnest money. So that's what the GAR form says. The RE form says seller has the right to demand removal of contingencies during the contingency period as selected above. It is understood seller shall continue to market the property. Buyer has X number of hours after receiving the notice from the seller of seller's receipt of secondary contract to remove all contingencies negotiated in favor of the buyer, including but not limited to contingencies for inspections, due diligence, buyer's right to terminate, appraisals, and financing. So that's what I want to bring to your attention. If the seller asks you, kicks out the buyer, invokes their kickout provision, and asks the buyer to remove the contingency to sell or lease their home, it not only removes that contingency, but every contingency in the contract. So make sure you're aware of that. Advise your buyers and best of luck. Go do more transactions, and thank you so much. Again, I'm Dana Sparks, broker with Maximum One Greater Atlanta, servicing your needs with education, information, and innovation.